more minute to go. Well, it's 7 o'clock, and I'm going to call the meeting of Middleton Plan Commission for August 24th, 2021 to order. And the first item on the agenda is the roll call.
Bruce,
I know he's here.
Bruce,
Randy Bruce, you are there. Oh, you were there.
I don't see him. I know he had said he might be a little late.
Oh, yeah, he did say that. Yeah, okay.
Erdman Hermans,
Present.
Paulson,
Here.
Ramsey,
Here.
Slavish,
Here.
and Brar is present. Schaefer is absent. And Bruce, have you joined yet or are you absent? Bruce looks like he's connecting.
Oh, yes, yes. Randy Bruce is connected, looks like it.
So I'll just watch for him and then I can note the time that
Okay.
he joins.
Okay. Well, it's 7 o'clock and I'm going to call the public hearing for the tax incremental finance district number 5, number 5, project plan amendment number 1. So, Abby, you want to take it?
Well, this is just the public hearing component. We will have a
Okay.
presentation, so I would just encourage everyone who is here for the public hearing to stay for the presentation afterwards if you want more information on the proposed amendment. And I know that we have several folks who have indicated their interest in speaking. If you are able to, just use that raise hand feature in Zoom. Click on the reactions with the little emoji smiley face, and there should be a hand, and you can click on raise hand there.
Okay, so right now this is the public hearing for tax incremental financing district number 5. Anybody who wants to speak either in favor or against it? Anybody who wants to speak against this project plan amendment number 1 of TIF District 5?
Mayor, I
please-
see a couple hands raised.
Well, okay, Ginny, are you speaking for TIF? Okay, go ahead, please.
I'm Ginny Corwin, and I'm president of the Middleton Beach Road Neighborhood Association, and I'm speaking on behalf of all of our Middleton Beach Road residents. We are pleased to know that the Conservancy land between Allen Boulevard and Middleton Beach Road included in the TID 5 amendment will continue to remain a wetland conservancy, and that there are no plans to modify this land in the future. With the help of TID 5 funding, there may be opportunities to use the land for improved stormwater management in the area. And both of these points are good for our residents in the area, and therefore we support adding this land, which is currently zoned conservancy, in this TID 5 amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Saeed?
Good evening. My name is Saeed Abdelkhalik. My wife and I own one of the Century Harbor condos, which border the proposed district as amended. I understand the underlying logic for the amendment. By subtracting parcels and simultaneously adding parcels with a lower combined current value, the city will be able to avoid the 12% statutory limitation of value increment in all open districts vis-a-vis the total valuation of the community. What is unclear is the extent of integrated analyses that have been performed as a part of this selection process. Specifically, how will these changes collectively impact neighboring communities? For example, several parcels on or near Lake Street were identified as possible opportunities for high-density development. Has an analysis been performed as to how development of multiple high-density projects in close proximity will impact traffic, and more important, whether such developments will exacerbate an already unacceptable level of risk to pedestrians and bicyclists in that area? An average resident in that area has 1 in 1,000 chance in any given year of being killed or injured while walking or biking. Other issues of concern include compatibility of such high-rise or high-density developments with the nature and character of the surrounding area, ground and stormwater management, parking and boat ramp access, and noise. What is needed is a thoughtful, integrated assessment to ensure that the quality of life for people in this city is not negatively impacted by aligning the financial interests of developers and city government. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you on this issue.
Thank you. Really. Okay, so the next speaker is Michael Williamson.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Michael Williamson. I live at 2841 Century Harbor Road, which is right next to several of the tracks that are being proposed to add to the TIF district. And first of all, let me just acknowledge the service of the mayor, the plan commission members, and the city staff. As a career employee of over 41 years in local government and state government, I worked with a lot of citizen committees, and I really greatly appreciate the effort it takes to help not only develop and protect the quality of life we have in Middleton, but to meet on a regular basis and to deal with the issues that are front and center for our city. I've read the report and the proposed plan, and I know that one of the city's goals is to promote the creation of high-density multiple land uses. And like Saeed, who spoke earlier, I have some concerns about the density that's related to some of these tracks. I think I speak for many of the residents who live in the Century Harbor condos, those folks that live along Middleton Beach Road, and those who use the boat houses in this area, that we have concerns about increased density and intensity of use along Lake Street. As many of you know, Lake Street is the only access to Lake Mendota that's in the city of Middleton, and it already gets very heavy use throughout the year by many types of users of the lake in the summer and the winter alike. Not only does this create congestion in parking along the street, but combined with the uses of the Harbor Health Club and the Century Harbor condos, has created a congested and even dangerous intersection at Allen and Lake Streets. You know, let me be clear. We do not oppose thoughtful and appropriate development, but we support development that does not overwhelm the existing and even the planned infrastructure in this community. But we want our fears and concerns to be acknowledged and addressed if and when any future development was to be proposed, so that as not to make an already difficult situation unworkable and create hazards for drivers, pedestrians, and bikers in this area. And I know the plan commissions have considered this, have talked about it in regards to a development in the area. But as you move forward with the TIF district, we just want to be, once again, to reiterate our concerns in this area. Thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Michael. Really appreciate it. Very thoughtful comments, all three of you. Anyone else who may want to speak at this time, please raise your hand. Anyone else who may want to speak at this time, please raise your hand. This is the public hearing for tax incremental finance testing number 5 and the project plan amendment number 1.
Mayor, I believe Meredith would like to speak.
Okay, Meredith, please go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to echo the statements that have been made by Michael and Saeed. As someone who lives just up the street from the proposed area, I have all of the same concerns and have been hearing those from others in the neighborhood who are not able to join today. I've also seen several of those comments on Nextdoor. As someone who uses who visits Harbor Athletic Club and uses all of the amenities in this area, I have concerns about determining that that spot should be set for redevelopment. We all expect that something will go into the area where Captain Bill's was, but high density is something that I definitely would like to avoid for all of the reasons that everyone so eloquently stated already.
Meredith, could you please state your address for the minutes?
Sure, I am at 5745 Century Avenue.
Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith. Is there anyone else who may want to speak for or against the project plan amendment number 1 to tax incremental finance district number 5? Anyone who may want to speak at this time, please raise your hands. Abby, I don't see any raised hand, do you? Last
I just
chance.
flipped through. I don't see anyone else.
Last chance. Anybody who may want to speak for or against project plan amendment number 1 for TIF district number 5. Please raise your hand. Okay, I'm going to close this part of the hearing and we go to the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of the Plan Commission minutes. Need a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve. Paulson.
Need a second.
Bruce seconds.
Okay, second by Bruce. Any questions or comments? All those in favor of the approving the Plan Commission minutes of August 10th, 2021, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. All right, folks, we have a new member, Gretchen Erdman Hermans, and let's welcome with the big hands. And Gretchen, do you want to say anything? This is your opportunity to say whatever you like to say.
Oh, just thank you so much for including me, and I hope to work with you all soon in person, and if not, at least with a face to the name, because I can't connect my video at the moment. So I'll see you all next time, I guess.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gretchen. So we move on to the item number 2. This is the resolution number 2021-42, approving project plan amendment number 1 to tax incremental finance district number 5 of the city of Middleton, Wisconsin. So I do want to say thank you to Ginny Corwin and to Saeed and Michael Williamson and Meredith for participating in the public hearing part of this amendment. And the comments were very valuable and right on target. Okay, so Abby, so you want to start?
Yeah, I just wanted to introduce our TIF consultant, Jeff Maloney, who is here and can provide a short presentation. If Daphne just wants to stop share, he can share from his screen.
Okay, Jeff.
Thanks, Abby. Thanks, Mayor. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Great.
Nice and clear.
And those were very good comments from the public, so I appreciate those, and I'll even try to address some of those in the presentation, hopefully. So we'll start off with the current TID 5 boundary. Many of you on Planning Commission know where it is, but in case you don't, the red area was largely created to look at the Highway 12 corridor and the old Highway 12 corridor along Parmenter Street. It connected through the Pheasant Branch Conservancy over to Allen Boulevard and Century Avenue, where some of the comments were. So for the public, what is TIF? TIF is not a planning, it's not a plan, it's a financing tool. So the goal is to spur economic development and grow the tax base typically in areas that would not others see the type or magnitude or timing of development desired by the community. So it really is a financing tool versus a plan. All the underlying zoning, comprehensive plan, area-wide plans all still stay in place. TIF is just a development tool to help encourage development. It is the single most powerful economic development tool communities have. So that's why a lot of people talk about it, and a lot of communities focus on TIF as a tool. Key terms, so you're going to hear me talk about base value. What is that? That's the total value of real estate and personal property that's within the TIF district when it is created. Then the increment, the value increment, is the increased value of the base value over time. Tax increment is the revenue that is generated from that increased value. The JRB, or the Joint Review Board, who we've met with once already, is the oversight committee for all TIF districts. It's a local group, including the local school district, the city, the county, and MATC or VOTEC. And then what's the difference between TID and TIF? District versus finance. So I always like to include those for the public. And how does it work? Whenever a TIF district is created, the base value is frozen throughout the extent of that TIF district. So let's say your site is generating $1,000 a year in taxes. That $1,000 a year for the life of the TIF will always be paid to the county, the schools, the tech school, and then a municipality. But all new increment that is created over the life of the TIF, those taxes are generated and given to the district for public improvements or to encourage additional economic development. At the end of the life of the TIF, all that increment then is released back to the tax rolls. TIF 5 was created in 2009. It is a blight TIF. There's different types of TIF. So that is a 27-year term. So we're slated for 2036 closure. And as of now, we're anticipating to go to the end of that. That could change over amendments. It was originally 104 million in project costs. We're not asking to change that as part of this amendment. Estimated value of the district creation was 900 million. We've adjusted that a bit based on the last few years of development, the last 10 years now. The base value of the district was around 90 million. And remember the goals, and I think some of the comments you heard, what main goal, stormwater management improvements, which is key, and you see the impact of those over the last flood. Redevelop blighted properties. Those were mostly along Parmenter corridor. Promote higher density mixed use land use of employment, commercial, and housing, and that's from the comprehensive plan. Provide affordable housing near employment centers. I think the city's done a great job of that, allowing people to work near where they live. Continuing job creation in the employment centers and expanding tax base, improving circulation, and also promoting sustainable infill development. So this is the first amendment we've had since the TIF district was created in 2009. We are proposing to subtract 36 parcels that we do not think will redevelop over the life of the TIF. Their base value in 2009 was 22.3 million. We would like to add 63 parcels that we think have opportunity for increased tax base or are areas that may benefit from public improvements or areas we need for contiguity. And remember, there was a good comment before we started, since the city is over the 12% total valuation of the community, we are allowed to do a simultaneous subtraction and addition, just like we recently did in TID 3, but the base values are a little different. So the parcels we remove are the original base values from 2009. And then the parcels we're adding to the TIF district would be their new base value would be 2020. So if this amendment is approved and goes through, we would be returning 7.4 million of incremental tax value to the taxing jurisdictions. That's from those 36 parcels. That's the increase over the 2009 base value. As I mentioned before, the project costs have changed a bit. We've added a few more, but we are not asking for an increase in the amount of project costs because with the cash flow analysis that we did as a staff, we don't need to increase that. The amendment parcels proposed to be added to the district are purple. The parcels proposed to be subtracted are in yellow. Purple are on all sides of the district. I'll zoom in on this because I know that map is difficult to read. Parcels to be subtracted, again, the yellow. These are all at the Century Avenue and Ellen Boulevard area. So the top of the screen there, A and B, that's CVS and the bank. E is Starbucks. FF to the right, or to the left there, sorry, by Branch Street is Quick Trip. And then you have some homes along Century Avenue. And then the majority of the area in the middle there, C, D, F, that's Spring Tree Apartments. There's been some recent improvements to that area. Has a very high base value in 2009, since it was already improved quite a bit. So we don't see that redeveloping. So we are removing that. And that's the main generator to allow for new properties to be added. And then Amherst Road, that was redeveloped as part of the TIF district already on the west side. And then we removed the properties to the east side as well. Parcels to be added will stay in the same area on the east side of the district. These areas are really extending the existing Allen Boulevard portion of the TIF towards the lake. So parcel 14 is a parking lot that's used by the athletic club. It may have opportunity for development, may not. With putting in the TIF district, it allows for that opportunity to use the financing tool. 15 is Captain Bill's. There's some single family homes over there. 16 and 19 are parking lots. 19 is owned by the city, 16 by the athletic club. And then parcels 20 through 26, their zoning is Conservancy area, I think lowland Conservancy. That area may have some stormwater improvements that could occur being added to the TIF district. And then 28 and 29 were added in really to get a contiguity, because the TIF district has to have parcels that connect to University Avenue. That's one of the goals of this TIF district, is to incorporate a portion of University Avenue into TID 5. By adding some of these properties into the district, we now make them eligible to access TIF funds for additional planning. So if the city wanted to do an Allen Boulevard corridor plan or a sub-area plan as part of the comprehensive plan amendment, they could access TIF funds for planning efforts. And that would include a large public participation component, I'm sure. The area of University Avenue, this is the intersection of Branch Street and University. On the west side, there are 53, that's Middleton Bowl. You can see the properties on the north and south side. There's quite a few smaller properties. And as University Avenue has redeveloped, especially in Madison by Hilldale, those are larger parcels and deeper. You see developers attracted to those. So these parcels are a bit sort of outdated as parcel size for redevelopment. So by including multiple parcels within the TIF, we feel like that allows a potential opportunity for new investment, because a developer may be able to acquire numerous parcels, put those together and do larger projects. Extending to the east there, number 62 is Coth Realty. East of that is Walgreens, just for context. 31 is Club Tavern. There's some office to the east of that, and then to the south is where the Chocolatarian was, and some other businesses that may not redevelop, but we still have the potential to put those into the district. Moving all the way to the west side of the district, this is Highway 12 and Airport Road. These are parcels that are currently in TID 3, but have not seen redevelopment over the life of that TIF. So we thought there's an opportunity to include those into TID 5 to extend their life of opportunity to be in the TIF district. 3 and 4 have some businesses on there, some vacant buildings on there, but 7, 8, and 9 are all vacant. Last area is the Graber Pond area. This is an area that we've looked at quite a bit. Talked about recent improvements, potential improvements to Parmenter Street, and then Bellefontaine Boulevard. 11 is a property that's been looked at for development by different companies over the years. So we now, through this amendment, would be able to put this into the district, which I think would help with stormwater improvements and also circulation improvements. 12 and 13 were added for stormwater improvement areas. They're owned by the city and have no value. So again, this is a blight district. And when people hear the word blight, they think, well, my property is being maintained. Why is this in a district? Which is very understandable. The Wisconsin state statute has a broader definition of blight. So if you look on the left side, you might see some words that you think of when you think of blight: dilapidation, deterioration, contributing to crime or ill health. Those are immediate blight. But then also on the right side, definitions like obsolete platting, which I think apply to University Avenue, diversity of ownership, many owners over an area, any area that impairs sound growth of the community. So anything that impedes reaching your goals of your comprehensive plan can be considered blight. And those are some of the terms that were used in that blight study, where the comments were to open up the public hearing. By state statute, we need to have at least 50% plus one of the total area in the district be deemed blighted through the study. So as you can see, the second row there, we're adding 130 acres to the district. Of that, 60 acres are blighted, and you can do the math quick, that's a little less than 50%, which is okay, because when you add those to the previous study that was done in 2009, we still have 61% blighted. So we meet that statute. A few projects we wanted to add to the project plan. Again, we are not asking to extend the total amount of project costs for the district. One is a green space area in development area 2, which if you don't have the plan in front of you is Parmenter area. This is area just north of the Conservancy Greenway that could be added to the Conservancy or be used for other uses. A lot of the infrastructure costs are associated with University Avenue, since that area was not in the TIF previously. We have typical costs like extending utilities, undergrounding utilities, improvements to any pedestrian or circulation. There might be bus rapid transit improvements that go into this area, or transit or bike shares, anything to do with transportation. Lake Street area, potential expansion of Bellefontaine, additional improvements to the Conservancy corridor, public parking, and then improvements associated with the healthcare campus, which is the site that Meritor purchased years back. These are put into the plan as options for the Plan Commission and for the council to consider. Just because they're in the plan does not mean the city needs to spend these funds. It's always at the discretion of the council. Sources and uses of funds. We work very closely with Bill on the TIF, Bill Burns on the TIF team, the finance director. We've updated the projections. We're projecting a sources of funds, so incoming of 147 million, and then about 104 in project costs, which hasn't changed, which, that's just over the life of the TIF. We don't have that budgeted, obviously, with debt service included. So there is a positive cash flow balance with projected development and potential project costs. At closing, there's about 5 million at closing. So that changes over time. We look at that every year. We look at that with DOR and with council every year at committee of the whole meetings. Right now we're in step 2, public hearing. We did have the initial JRB meeting, the Joint Review Board meeting last week. Council meeting is September 7th, and then we did determine the final JRB meeting would be on the 21st, pending council approval on the 7th. So I can be happy to answer any commissioner questions. I can go back to any maps you'd like.
Any questions for Jeff, please raise your hand. And Jeff, if you want to somehow address the 4 participants who had the public comments, I guess you addressed in a way, but if you want to say anything more, that would be okay with me. So
I can address that quick, Mayor. I think some of the terms, higher density development, that's what we use for the blight study to say that it impedes, we'll actually go to the slide, it impedes future growth or development of the community. So that's a term you'd see in a blight study, and that's on there. That does not necessarily mean that if the city did a corridor study or an area-wide plan study, that would be the findings. And again, this isn't a planning document, it's a financing tool. So it is, even though it straddles planning, it can be a little confusing.
okay. And anyone from the Plan Commission who may have questions or comments for for Jeff, for Abby, or anyone? Please raise your hand. I don't see any raised hands. So I'm going to go to the next.
Oh, Mayor,
Mhm. Yeah,
Gretchen has her hand raised.
Gretchen, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a few questions, and obviously I'm new to this, so this might be redundant for some of you folks. But I have a question of why in particular plots 14, 15, potentially 16 how would that fit into the but-for clause of redevelopment in this area? So the but-for clause of this wouldn't be redeveloped, but for having the TID when this appears to be a pretty high value location
Yeah,
with a
you
water
want-
view.
Jeff, you want to address it?
The TIF project plan allows for the but-for discussion to occur. So the TIF document doesn't determine what is but-for and what isn't. That's determined at Plan Commission with discussion. So every TIF deal is different. It depends on the terms of the deal. It depends on what the developer brings from a financing standpoint. That's where the but-for question is asked. So this allows any but-for discussion to occur essentially.
And just to add to what Jeff mentioned, the Plan Commission doesn't review TIF requests anymore. There was a change probably about a year and a half ago. And so now that is done by the Finance Committee and the Common Council. And typically when that determination is made is usually done when the Finance Committee is reviewing the project pro forma from the developer. So we look at all of the detailed costs associated with the project, and we verify those with our TIF engineering consultant from Strand. They have access to a lot of recent bid tabulations and current information about construction costs. And so they verify that all of the costs that are submitted to the city are reasonable estimates. And then we look at everything down to the rent income or the lease income that's associated with the project. And then what is the rate of return? What is the developer fee? And other key indicators within the sources and uses of funds that are submitted to the city. And those are all reviewed and evaluated by the Finance Committee. And then they advise the Common Council whether or not the project meets the but-for test.
Gretchen, does that
Okay,
answer
thank
your
you for
question?
clarifying that. Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the next one is Kurt Paulson.
oh, I was going to say much the same thing, so it's been covered.
Okay. Anyone else who may want to speak? Well, Meredith, it's only for the Plan Commission right now. You had a chance to speak earlier. Anyone else from the Plan Commission who may want to speak at this time? Anyone from the Plan Commission who may want to speak? Gretchen?
Yeah, I have one more question.
Go
So
ahead.
there's one very small plot included in their number 63, which is apparently next to the common ground lot, which was a proposed redevelopment in the last meeting. I'm wondering what the purpose of including that one is.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's actually all the common ground site. So 63 is the building, the existing building that's already there. And then the parcel to the north of that is the parking lot. When we took a look at the amendment,
Oh, okay.
we realized that the original TIF district only included the parking lot and not the building. So making the site
thank you.
whole in the TIF district, yeah.
Excellent question, Gretchen. Anyone else? Okay, well, I need a motion to approve the resolution number 2021-42 and recommend the approval to the Common Council.
So moved. This is Paulson.
Moved by Kurt Paulson. Need a second?
Slavish will second.
Second by Mike Slavish. Any questions or comments at this time? Any questions or comments if you have from the Plan Commission, please raise your hands. Okay, I see no questions or comments. All those in favor of the motion to approve resolution number 2021-42 and recommend approval to the common council, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we are on to item number 3. Pleasantville Road Reconstruction Design Review for Retaining Wall. And this is, go ahead.
Yes, Jeff Maloney is actually going to take this one too. And he has been working with Dean Proctor, who we don't get a chance to work with as much at Vanderwall, but he is an architect on their team. The two of them have put together some really exciting concepts to share with you on Pleasantville Road.
Okay,
Thanks,
Jeff, go ahead.
Thanks. It's good to be back. Pleasantville Road project, we started, looking at this at the TIF team in 2018, at the beginning of the Strand project that you've all seen updates on. And we've always talked about how to make this corridor more of a sense of place, more of a place that people remember. It's a very large improvement that the city is doing. So we think it's a generational opportunity to tell a story and opportunity for placemaking and make an impression of all the cars that will be going down Pleasantville Road in the future. And we want something that will represent the community and not just be a highway project. That's, you've seen some previous renderings of the bridge. Now this is sort of the next step in what do the wall designs look like. This is the corridor. North is to the right. So Blackhawk Road is the roundabout on the left side. Highway 14 would be up on the right side. These numbers are all the wall numbers from Strand's working construction drawings. So the 632, 362, 363, and Dean and Brett from Strand and I have been talking quite a bit about these walls and what would work and what wouldn't. So we came back and presented this to the TIF team just a week or two ago, and we wanted to bring it to Plan Commission for your input. These are the orange and yellow lines are the walls that are along the corridor. The yellow ones are the walls that would be part of this study. So these are the walls that face the road, that have some height and have a real opportunity to tell a story. The orange wall on the left side by Blackhawk is really a retaining wall that's close to the residential building that was recently built a few years ago. That'll most likely be a boulder wall. It just fits the best. But the other walls could be panel walls, which gives you a lot more flexibility on what you could do with the wall, or it can look like a plain construction wall, which is probably what we don't want. The other orange walls that you see on the east side of the road actually face PPD and face the residential area. So those probably will have an enhancement to them, but maybe won't be part of the storytelling. So we're really focused on these yellow ones. The example picture you see on the left side is just kind of the typical form liner, we call it. And it's the manufactured concrete cast in place wall used in DOT projects. The wall will have a cap on it, and the wall will have a fence of some sort per requirement for DOT. The budget, this type of wall that's got a bit of a nicer form liner is already in the budget. So it wouldn't be obviously just a blank wall, but we think there's opportunity to enhance that even further. The sections you see on the bottom are actually to scale of the plant. So we've zoomed in on the south side here. The left wall, 363, is the golf course wall, and that gets up to about 10 feet at its height, and then tapers on each side. There's a curved wall where the bike path will curve up to the north to connect to the bike pedestrian bridge. It's only about 3 to 5 feet tall. And then the main area, I have to move my pictures here. The main walls are actually by the pedestrian bridge. So that's the 367 and 366. So those are between 18 and 20 feet tall. So if you look on the bottom there, you see a car is right where it says Hilltop. That little red thing is a car. So those walls get fairly large and provide an opportunity to make an impression that reflects the community. So at the TIF project team, we talked about, Frank Lloyd Wright influence, which we see quite a bit in Dane County with the prairie style architecture. But we also talked about the geological story of where Middleton is located and where it is with the Green Bay Lobe glacier that came through 10,000 years ago. And Middleton, is at a unique spot. I like this map in the center here, this one that shows the two green lines that go through there. Those are the terminal moraines. The right one's the Milton moraine, where the dot is, it goes right through this area. Then the left one that goes up towards Cross Plains is the Johnstown moraine. And we really are on the driftless, the gateway to the driftless area. That map, you can see all the drumlins on the right side of the map, those little red dashed on an angle. Just follow the path of the Green Bay Lobe as it came through and scraped out half the state. And then the driftless area to the left. So we feel like that's a very unique component of the state. I think it's a beautiful story to tell. And I think we could tell that actually in the roadway project, since it's on the edge of the district. So really, when you look at Middleton, it is in the middle of the driftless area to the west with the organic farms, the rolling hills, farmettes, the small quaint communities, and then the glaciated areas with the drumlins, the kettle ponds, and out, even to Jefferson where they continue through. So we talked about that at our TIF team, and we thought that was a good direction and something that's unique and really a sense of place. So how do we tell that story? Well, we have 3 different ways that we thought of that we want to present to you tonight. One is showing different layers. So looking at telling the story of how the bedrock was created through ancient oceans, through compacted over time from heat and pressure, and through bedrock and glacial till all the way up to the ground plane, which is the topsoil. That could be a little bit more abstract, but we can use existing forms from the Formliner company that could create that story. Second one are geological sections. They might be more artful forms that show an impression of the glacial till and how the glaciers moved through the area thousands of years ago. And the third one could be more of a representational approach, where we actually look at showing the driftless area on one side, the glacial area on the other. So I'll go into a little more detail to see how that could show you how that could play out. So again, these are the top of the screen here are the walls. So the golf course wall on the left, curved ramp, then the 2 walls by the hilltop. So these photos you see in the center are actual formliners from a company called Reinforced Earth, which is whose strand is used on many projects and has a good track record. So one idea is we could show that story of the bottom layer there, layer 1 being the ancient oceans. The second layer, which is a little bit in the rust color, it doesn't have to be that color, could be the bedrock and the glacial till and the soil on the top. And that could be played out by elevation. So as you go through the corridor, either let's say you're going from south to north, you first see the golf course wall, and that's lower in elevation. So you might see the ancient oceans and the bedrock develop. And that could be horizontal bands that dive into the earth, because the wall will actually dive into the ground. The curved ramp could be part of bedrock and glacial till. Then when you get to the larger walls, it might show bedrock all the way up to the soils, and those could extend out as you go up the hill. And these aren't paintings, these are relief structures in the forms. Similarly, the geological sections, these would be more custom-based forms, but maybe over by the golf course, we could show the idea of the creation of the bedrock, then the bedrock, and then as you go up north, you might have a larger wall where you show that more abstract, artful and feature. It's basically the relief of the concrete showing the glacial till and how the area was formed. And then the more representational approach might be, this kind of reminds me of Grant Wood painting, showing some drumlin areas in the wall itself, showing relief. Might show the next wall might show a driftless landscape. And as you get to the large top of the hill, there could be a larger relief where it shows those actual representations of the two landforms. It could be on one side. This option shows it on the west side, where there's more of a one image showing that, and that could be a large image because that's a large wall. And then there's also the option where same thing, but maybe you drive through and on the west side of the wall, west side wall would show the driftless landscape. The right side would show the glaciated landscape. So these are examples of actual form liners from the company. So I think it gives you an idea of how we could potentially create these different concepts. And it shows you can get quite a bit of relief from the form lines. And it shows you how they're constructed. So they're constructed in usually 5 by 10 panels. These are a little different. The form liner on the left, bottom left, and the one on the top right is essentially just standard form liner, where all the different blocks are the same, and that reduces cost. The other ones show different features in them, where some of them are repeated, some of the squares, and that's one cost. And then when you get into other patterns, that changes the cost. So we've studied quite a bit about these walls. Basically, they make a mold, and then you can repeat that so many times, or it might be all custom, where you get into that image on the bottom right, where there's a relief with the horses there. Each one of those panels is a custom panel, but then the diagonal ones are just standard form liner. So as we think about the wall again, remember there'll be different experiences in the corridor. You'll have the high speed motion of the cars that go through, but you'll also have pedestrians walking on the sidewalk. Remember there'll be a sidewalk on here now and a bike path. So having an interpretive feature, maybe it's up by the bike path, and having a wall that has texture and people can experience it, I think makes some sense. And you also experience it up above from the bridge. So we wanted to present those ideas to you for discussion. We also wanted to give you some ideas of cost. We're very far away from giving you exact costs, but we can give you, we were able to talk with the vendor and with Strand as a team to look at some of these. So basically the 4 walls now are in the budget already for about 1.1 million. That's part of the budget. That's just what it is. So in incremental cost, if we wanted to do an approach where we did different existing form liner textures, so that would be like that first option, the horizontal banding. There's a small upcharge for that because you're just ordering more panels and it's just delivery costs, but they are existing. And some of the, depending on how the squares align, some of them might be a bit custom because they might be split in half. So it'll probably be, it's 4% difference, but it'll probably be 50 to 100,000 more, we're guessing. And again, we'd be able to refine that if we want to move forward. And then the third technique where you get into custom panels. So each panel is about $94 to $98 a square foot. And then if you go to a custom technique, you're adding about $200 a square foot to that. So if we did the whole wall, we realized, wow, that's 3 times as expensive. So that's probably a bit more than we'd want to do for the whole corridor. But maybe we could do a combination of techniques. So maybe we could use standard form liners for part of the wall and then look at the larger walls in particular as an option for more of an interpretive piece that would give an experience to the corridor. We also have sort of taken that, we had our TIF team and we said, okay, well, we like this idea. We could actually show how that could work out to maybe reduce some of the costs and show how that could be applied to the corridor. I can go through those 4 options now, or we could stop and just debrief on this before. Depends on what you'd like to do.
Well, I think maybe it's okay to go through the other options so we can have a discussion on the whole thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So again, after our TIF team, we said, well, we have two types of molds that we can use for our palette. We got the standard form liners at $100 square foot. We got the custom at almost 300. So how could that apply to those 4 walls? A is very similar to what you saw as that original option A, where we could have the horizontal bands. So these are just some form liners we picked out. They don't have to be these yet, but we quickly found like Ancient Sea one, a Bedrock one, Glacial Till one. apply those to the whole, all four walls. And then maybe you want to put in your medallion in the middle as an option. That would be on both walls at the bridge. So that cost would be the 1.1 million, which is already in the budget, or it could have a little bit more charge, 50 to 100,000 for the new mixed forms. And then the medallions would be custom. So if they were 10 by 20, which sounds big, but again, this is a big wall, that'd be $100,000. So it'd be like $50,000 a medallion. It gives you an idea of kind of how much things cost in general. That would be one option. If we did the same thing again with the golf course wall, the curved wall, but then we said, okay, well, we'd like to look at those two walls that are up by the bridge. So that's on the right side of the graphic here. Let's take the west side wall and make that all custom panels, whether it's the glacial till abstract idea or something like this, or something totally different. And then cut the wall to the east side, which is on the bottom of the graphic there, as just the standard form liners with the emblem. We would probably add, you'd have a reduced cost for the form liner because some of it would be custom, but then you'd have all the custom work. So it'd be about $2.4 million. So if you have 1.1 in their budget already, we would need to add another $1 million or so of TIF funding to achieve that large wall. I'm going to go back. And again, that would be that whole wall, which is a few hundred feet long. We said, well, we can kind of do this all day, but you can, start to break it down in custom versus non-custom form liner, and said, well, percentage wise, the graphic on the right side, let's take that wall that's on the west side of the road and say maybe half of that could be used for custom. Then that reduces the cost down to around 1.8 million. So we'd be, let's say 700,000 in additional funding to achieve something. And then again, that idea of actually driving through those experiences where we have partial custom on the west side and partial custom on the east side. That cost is, another 250,000 or so over the previous option you just saw. So it'd be anything over about 1.1, 1.2 is the baseline that's already in the budget. So I know that's a lot of information, but I think the idea is that we wanted to just get your thoughts as a plan commission and say, well, this is a interesting idea. This is maybe not a great idea, but I think it is an opportunity for the city to say, well, we do have TIF funding available. We do have a large anticipated public budget through the life of TID 3. We want to use some of that to enhance these walls and create a space that I think many, many people would see traveling through your.
Thank you, Deb. I will start with two questions here. Number one is the longevity, which one is likely to have more problems and will start falling apart? And what will be the maintenance for either of these walls? So I will start with this two and then have more. So.
Yep, that's a good question. We talked about that at the TIF team, and these would all be integral. These are all cast in place concrete walls, all created the same way, whether it's an existing form liner or a custom one. They're all created the same way where they just pour concrete into the form. You can add some color to these if you'd like. It's integral color, so it wouldn't fade over time, or if it did, it would be uniform across the whole form. We didn't anticipate adding paint to this. That is another option, that you could explore. Quite a few walls are, have you ever see any of the stones that are different colored? They look more natural. Those are usually a four color approach, 4-color application. We saw these just as integral colors. So the maintenance, there wouldn't be any maintenance requirements over a typical wall, and it shouldn't fade over time.
So you think that in terms of longevity, they will be very similar?
Yep.
You're talking about 75 to 100 years, or not quite that long?
Yeah, it would be the same as just a regular concrete wall. Anything that has a form liner on it. And the reason we thought that approach was, we know the maintenance budget there may not be a maintenance budget over time once the TIF district is closed. And you can't use TIF funds for maintenance anyway. So.
I think it does enable us to make a statement. I do like those medallion and M sign. And we may not do the whole wall to make a statement. We could do parts of it like you proposed, because, money is, it may be tough, but still money is still a limiting factor. So, and also you have to see the utility of it as well. So I think a lot of great, great presentation and a lot to think about. Kurt has his hand up. Kurt, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Jeff, I was going to ask, I mean, this might be a stupid question, but suppose you have no form liner. Obviously, you have to have some form liner because it's poured concrete, but no additional charge and it's flat. Could you make a surface that could be painted on for a mural that could be changed out every couple of years? Or is that really not work on this type of surface?
No, you definitely could. And let me see if I can go back to, I don't have an example of that, but if you ever go up to like a Schwabenon, there's
yeah,
it's very flat. Any of these could be flat. You definitely could. I would.
How would it affect the price?
Well, it would just be standard wall, and then you'd have the mural costs. I would caution a bit about creating anything too intricate, because I don't know if we want to encourage pedestrians to stop along this corridor, but it would be visible from the bridge too, which is a great safe vantage point.
And then the other question is, who makes the ultimate decision on the design relative to cost? Is this would go to council, right? Because it's an expenditure of TIF funds.
Yeah, this would have to get approved by council. As Jeff noted, all of these proposals are at least incrementally more than what is already included in that line item in the budget. It is possible that there will be enough savings in the other line items within the budget, particularly the land acquisition line, where we may be able to fit, a much more comprehensive design into the existing capital budget, but that would have to be a determination by finance and council. I did just want to mention one thing about the mural idea. Having staffed the arts committee now for the last 15 years, I've learned a little bit from our committee, and particularly we had a art conservator who was on our commission for most of that time. And she has taught me a lot about longevity of paint, in particular on concrete surfaces, and it would likely require a substantial amount of maintenance. It would probably chip and fade over time, but there is another option to consider, and it's what we did at the mock with the Dane Arts mural art, and that is it's a polytab fabric, and they paint the mural right onto that fabric, and then they adhere it to the wall. And that still does have maintenance costs. It needs to be UV coated every 2 years, which most of the cost for that is actually in the scaffolding rental and getting the scaffolding set up so that the people can go out and do the UV coating every 2 years. But those are intended to last for 20 years if you use the polytab.
So, and then I'll just say that I don't have any particular preference for one design over the other, but I like what the TIF team's done, Jeff and the architect, and I think having some art component to tell the story is helpful, because otherwise it's just a lot of kind of blank, empty wall. I know people drive pretty fast, but we're going to go to Public Works and we're going to lower the speed limit to 20 miles an hour, so people can enjoy the art. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Next one is Randy Bruce.
I'd like to just reiterate what Kurt said. I think it's really nice to see the idea of incorporating some art and to this wall, and they are large expanses of wall, and it gives a sense of quality to the city if we add some texture and some artwork to it. I can't give specific direction as to what I prefer one over the other. I do kind of like this image that's on the screen now. the one on the right where you've got the biker and you show different types of soil conditions. It's very interesting, and I think it would be interesting for both pedestrians and people that are driving through the corridor. And I'm glad that the group made some suggestions to this.
Thank you, Randy. So the next one is Dan Ramsey.
Abby, I have a question for you. As you and I like the idea of having some kind of R2 like Randy and Kurt do, but my question for you, Abby, is you talked a little bit about the possibility of being some cost savings throughout the project where you could put together a plan. At what point would that kind of come to light where you would know what kind of cost savings there were, so you could look at that as the funding source as opposed to more TIF funds?
That's a great question. I think I would probably need to check in with Sean Stowski and get back to you on that, because I know that it sounds like there are likely to be some cost savings, but I don't know when that will be all finalized.
I think that would probably be something that certainly finance would like to see.
Yep.
Okay, any other question? Gretchen? Gretchen, please go ahead. You have to unmute yourself. You're muted. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I didn't realize I was still muted. I have a comment and then a question as well. So I also really appreciate that the aesthetics of this wall area was considered, especially considering that's an extended area from downtown, and that's often overlooked in the extended areas. But it does make such a nice impact when I go to places like Tucson and there's murals on the underpasses. It really is striking, and it makes me feel like the community cares about itself. And I love that the idea of the geologic sections are the proposed artwork here because of the importance globally of what it means to have the extent of the western lobe of the glacier right in that neighborhood. So I really appreciate that that was what was selected. I do have a question. So if we go with the lowest cost option, which is rather abstract, which makes sense to me as a geologist, but to other people may not, would there be an opportunity perhaps to use plaques or signs to give a bit more education to those who would like to understand why that was selected for a pedestrian or biker passing by?
Yeah.
And I guess my other comment would be that I would be opposed to painted murals because if they do require maintenance, that would seem to get in the way of the pedestrian and bike use in that area periodically.
And then to answer your question, Gretchen, and Abby can add to it, absolutely. We did talk about the need for an interpretive display where people can safely approach it and read about where you are in the world and why it's important and how it's represented on the wall. I think it would definitely need that along with the forms.
Yeah, I feel like we need Jeff's presentation that he just gave on the interpretive signage because it is so much a part of the story. And I love that it's, you know, kind of an educational component to the project. And I think, you know, from my perspective, you can go through lots of communities that have like your standard form liner or even have like paid the upcharge just to put a city logo on the side of a bridge. But I would really hope that the Plan Commission would do something that's a little bit unique to Middleton. And I think this proposal here really tells a story about our community. It's a key corridor. It's a redevelopment area. There are people who live along the corridor. And I think with this large of a capital investment, it's worth the, you know, small added charge to at least focus on some of these walls. And, you know, from my own preference, I would prefer to go with something more abstract. So either the layers or the geological sections option, but then to really use the interpretive signage to explain the rest of the story if we don't if we don't do as much of the like literal mural option that requires the custom form liner for each one of the pieces, to really try to supplement that with the interpretive signage like Gretchen had mentioned.
So Gretchen, you have more questions? You have raised hands still, or?
Sorry, I do have just one more. I thought at the beginning of the presentation, he mentioned that there would also be a boulder retaining wall. And my only comment there would be that I would like to see a quote for Baraboo Quartzite included, if that is a boulder retaining wall in some part, versus the more commonly used limestone, which degrades rather rapidly as a retaining wall.
Yep, we will
My
pass
last
that
comment.
on to Strand. Absolutely.
Okay, any further questions or comments from the Plan Commission members? Well, I really like, Jeff, you're presenting various concepts, various ideas. And I think one thing which I would like to see is that if we are spending money, we will spend at a place where people will actually see it. So I think let's keep that in mind. So I think, where the pedestrians and bikers or the others would be, stop by and look at them. So that's something which we need to consider. And so I think we also, how could we have an input from more people? I think this is really a great opportunity for the city to make a statement here. And, Middleton doesn't really have a whole lot of art, and the people, driving, walking, biking would see, wow, okay. So if we could, well, of course, Abby is going to look into the savings part. Money is always the limiting factor. So, but I think this does provide us a opportunity to make a statement. So, and so what, Abby, what would be, who should we take it to further to get more input? I mean, I think there's a probably reason to get some public input on this one. So send it to people, various committees, or
Well,
I think
one idea is, it sounds like there are comments in support of having some sort of enhanced design. But there are a few options, and this has been a lot of information that's been presented and for you to digest during the meeting. So one suggestion is you could recommend approval for some kind of enhanced design, and then you could also refer it to the Arts Committee for additional feedback if you wanted to get their input.
So are there any other, could we, well, I know we got the COVID thing, but is there some way to get more input from the whole community? I think, yeah, I know the art committee will be good, but are there some other ways to get the input?
Well, we've done this a few other times, and I guess I would just provide a little bit of caution that if you put out the 3 design options, you have to be willing to accept the input that you receive. So if you put out 3 choices somewhere publicly and ask residents to weigh in, and then 70% of the residents say they like this one option and there's a clear favorite, then I think that the Common Council would need to be prepared to select that option. So the Arts Committee has kind of gotten away from that because they've done that a couple of times on projects. And then after the selection was made, the council has not allocated funding to move the project forward, which causes a lot of confusion in the community.
Okay. Well, when you look at the total cost of this project, it is probably one of the larger projects city has done. So isn't it close to about $20 million? So yeah, I don't exactly remember it, but this does provide us an opportunity to make a statement. Anyway, other comments? So you would like, you said provide input after the presentation. So you're not asking for any recommendations here, are you?
Well, does the Plan Commission support us proceeding with looking into the 3 enhanced design options, or I guess 4 in the more detailed presentation? Do you support us continuing down this path of looking into an enhanced design?
And send it to the art committee as well. I am. So Randy, you have your hand up? Randy
You're
Bruce?
muted, Randy.
Yeah, yes, I'm in support of the enhanced design. After giving it some more thought and after hearing other people talk, it seems to me that I've got a personal preference towards kind of expressing the geological sections. I think that seems very appropriate. Going into this unique custom individual panels to create a specific artwork seems like we're spending quite a bit of money and maybe not for the same benefit. I think the aesthetics of this is extraordinary and I think would be well received.
Anyone else? Okay, so then
Do you want a motion?
Yeah, I need a motion and
So the
also send it to the art committee as well. So
The motion would be to express, I'll make the motion that we express support for, Abby, what's the term used? An enhanced design and encourage TIF staff to continue to explore this and to refer to the arts committee.
okay. Need a second? I will go ahead and second it. So let's
And
have
then-
a more input here. So any further questions or comments? Abby, do you think that will cover all the grounds?
I think that will work.
And I don't think we want to sit here tonight just with the drawings and say, this particular combination of forms in that particular wall is what we're saying has to be the case. We'll let, I don't know who ultimately makes that choice, but
Well, let it go back to the TIF team. And I think we have provided the input here and we want to spend the money where people will actually see it and not where, it's just there, people driving at 40, 50, whatever miles. So I think if they come up with some sort of concept that, and then we can look at it again and also to get the input from the art committee. So I think that seemed like a good idea.
And Abby, would this ultimately come before us for design review as a public improvement?
It would when the design is final.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes. Abby, this was, and Jeff, really a great job. I think, since we'll be spending $80 to $20 million on this one, and I'm sure you will come up with the places where we can highlight it and it can make a statement. And there are places where we don't need to spend money. So
I think the end result,
the
end result will be a pleasant view.
The way to go, the way to go. I like that. So, okay, item number 4. Thank you, Kurt. SIP modification for sign design review, BLUR aesthetics, 7611 Elmwood Avenue, number 107. Daphne, I think, we have all gone through this, but Daphne, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very simple sign. It's like about 10 square feet, including these brackets. And they're just putting it on the side of this Middleton Center building.
It looks very unique. So what do you think the way it's put over there, it's set up, it looks interesting. And any questions or comments from Daphne? We don't really have any signs sticking out like that in the city, or do we?
There are a lot on Middleton Center. A lot of the buildings have that blade sign, like Grace Coffee has one, like Jason Holmes. they have one. Yeah, a lot of them have them. And this building it's kind of tucked into a corner. So having a sign actually on the building, you can't see it from the street really. So having the blade sign is actually more helpful to them.
Okay.
Daphne, go ahead,
Go
Mayor.
ahead, Kurt. Go ahead, Kurt. No,
So
that's fine.
that kind of picnic awning in the left side of this picture, that's long table?
Yes, that's long table.
Yeah, because my main question was why the blade sign orients there, because most blade signs orient towards street traffic or pedestrian traffic. But this is towards kind of a walk alley in between the phase 1 and phase 2 and 3.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they are kind of tucked behind. So like this picture, you're kind of standing right in front of Peter Kraus Fitness, is where they took it. And so it's kind of the best area to see it if you're in a car, like at that bend. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly why they chose this exact location, but I'm guessing it's because it's the best location from the car.
Yeah, but you know, if you're going around the corner, I think you better not be looking left towards that sign there. Otherwise, it might be a blur to you. But as long as the landlord is okay with the sign, I'm okay with the sign.
Is the applicant here? Abby is applicant here or not?
I don't see them on here.
Okay. Okay, all right, then need a motion to approve.
Ramsey will make the motion to approve the minor SIP modification for the sign.
Need a second.
Bruce seconds.
Any further questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion, this is the SIP modification for sign design review for Blur or BLU or aesthetics on 7611 Elmwood Avenue, number 107, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion passes. We are on to the presentation. Wow, this should be Steve and Colleen. So Abby, you're going to
Sure,
introduce them?
yeah. Well, we
This
get
is
to
great.
work with, we have the wonderful opportunity to work with the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission and the Greater Madison MPO quite a bit through different projects, and also through Mark Opitz, of course, serving on the MPO board. And we just thought that there are some really amazing projects underway. I've been involved a bit with the regional development plan with Steve and some other municipalities. And we thought that this would be a great time to have them share some of the work that's being done on the regional level, and also just so our plan commissioners can see how our own planning fits in with the greater Madison region. And so I will go ahead and we have Steve Steinhoff, who is the agency director for CARP-C, and then we have Colleen Hosley, who is the transportation planner with the Greater Madison MPO here. And they can, I don't know if do you prefer to just share your screen, Steve and Colleen, rather than us pulling up the presentation?
Yeah, I would. I'd like to. I'll just share my screen.
Yes, thank you.
Are we ready then? Or?
Oh yes, we are ready.
Go
Great
ahead.
to see you both.
Okay.
Go ahead, Steve.
All right. So can you see the screen?
Oh yes.
All right. So I'll turn on the presentation. Turn it on presentation mode. And every time I do this, I have to turn off the closed caption thing. Oops, I already advanced it too far. Good to, I was going to say good to see everybody, but so far I can see 3 people besides myself. That's just the way it goes. But I am happy to be here and virtually and share this information with you. I'm thankful for the opportunity. So I'll keep going. And just a really quick thing about a few slides about CARP-C. I'm not going to assume that everybody knows who we are. I know some of you are familiar with us, and some very familiar, but we are one of 9 planning commissions in Wisconsin, and local communities establish RPCs, as we're known, as vehicles to address issues that go beyond your municipal boundaries, and our mission and vision reflect that purpose. So you see our mission: strengthen the region by engaging communities through planning, collaboration, and assistance. And our vision of a region where communities create exceptional quality of life for all by working together to solve regional challenges. So we are the governing 13-member commission, our governing body, with commissioners appointed by the Dane County Executive, the Mayor of Madison, Dane County Towns Association, and your representatives are appointed by the Dane County Cities and Villages Association. We bring communities together to collaborate on land use and water quality plans, including the Regional Development Framework, which I'll be presenting tonight, but also the Dane County Water Quality Plan. We conduct watershed urban development plans and provide planning, mapping, and data assistance. But we do not regulate land use, establish ordinances, issue permits. So in other words, we're not a regulatory body, and sometimes people confuse us of being one. And we do not conduct other types of regional planning, but we partner closely with other entities, as you'll learn about more tonight with our integration of regional and land use and transportation planning. So on to the subject of the night, for me anyway. So as I mentioned, RPCs address regional challenges that span municipal boundaries, and the Regional Development Framework is one of the tools that we use to do that. If there's time for questions after both of our presentations, then here's a couple ones you might want to keep in mind. And we are interested in hearing from you all as well. How does the Regional Development Framework compare to Middleton's future development plans? And what do you think is the best way to implement the framework, both in Middleton and regionally? And what challenges to implementation might you see? So let's start with, you have a 90-second quick video that gives a high-level overview. I think it's helpful, and I can build on some of the, so I don't have to go over those high-level details. Oh, wait, shoot. I realized I think I have to stop sharing, go back to share. And so when I click share, I forgot to say share sound. Sorry about that. There. So let's see. So give me a thumbs up if you can hear this.
One of the Greater Madison region's key challenges is growth. With almost 200,000 more people projected to live in Dane County by the year 2050, our choices about how and where people live, work, and travel set the stage for future quality of life. CARPC's Regional Development Framework lays the necessary foundations to support continued growth by pinpointing opportunities and mapping realistic planning concepts that activate our greatest potential. It serves as a guide to tackle our common challenges and achieve our shared goals. The work to prepare this framework started about 5 years ago with the Greater Madison Vision Initiative that engaged people across the region to explore possible futures and set priorities. More than 9,000 people completed the Greater Madison Vision Survey. Their top priorities were climate change, access to opportunities, and conservation. Based upon those priorities and local inputs, we drafted a regional development framework to address the challenges of how we grow. The framework focuses growth in vibrant centers and corridors, prioritizes growth in already developed areas, plan areas for traditional neighborhoods and quality business development, and minimize growth in natural resource and farming areas. These strategies help us meet our climate, access to opportunity, and conservation goals. A resilient future starts with the decisions we make today. The Regional Development Framework serves as a guide for incorporating big picture goals into individual decisions about where and how to grow. Please visit capitalarearpc.org to learn more, provide feedback, and request a presentation. One of the Greater Madison.
Okay, so that's the high-level overview, and I'll go into a little more detail on some of those. You heard in the video that the Greater Madison Vision set the stage for the framework and revealed top priorities of climate change, access to opportunities, and conservation. So a top public priority is to reduce greenhouse gases that cause climate change and to become more resilient to the effects of climate change that we're already experiencing, especially in the form of higher flood risk, as you all well know in Middleton. Another top priority is to increase access to jobs and services for all people by expanding housing choices, ensuring safe, affordable housing for all, and by creating a robust regional transit system for Madison and adjacent communities. And third was conserving our vital natural, agricultural, and tax resources, which means spending our tax dollars more wisely on infrastructure like roads and pipes. So using this information that was collected during Greater Madison Vision, we developed widely agreed upon goals and objectives for future growth and development. You may recall that about a couple of years ago, we put out a survey about the goals and objectives, and some of you probably, or maybe filled out that survey, and the response was strong support. So the regional development framework is designed to achieve these goals. Tonight will be an advisory guide for local communities, regional agencies, and our private sector partners. We will be working with the Greater Madison MPO, as I mentioned, to integrate regional land use and transportation planning. To prepare the framework, we worked with local community officials, like Abby mentioned, being part of our technical advisory committee, included planners, officials from across the region. And we working with local officials, we created a 2050 growth scenario that locates people, households, and jobs across the region to meet our growth projections. It follows local community plans, aims to achieve regional priorities and goals, and applies lessons learned from similar planning efforts across the country. From this input, we identified 6 growth strategies that were quickly mentioned in the video, and I'll cover a little more detail now. First strategy is to focus growth in centers and along corridors. So the framework defines centers as vibrant places where people can live, work, shop, be entertained, meet, and connect with others. We think of them as welcoming places for all people, and as places that foster innovation through greater connections across people. And the corridors connect centers. They provide a variety of ways to travel, including walking, biking, and where possible, transit. And they offer, at least along some stretches, similar combinations of activities found in centers. This map shows where centers currently exist in the green circles and where they could exist with attention to planning and development in the blue circles. Centers are found at a range of scales. You see the Metro Center in downtown Madison, serving as government, business, and cultural center for the whole region. Regional centers, somewhat smaller in size, draw people from multiple communities, and smaller yet, community centers draw people from within one community. So here you see the zoom in on the core centers and corridors map for the Middleton area. Here, what it's showing right now are the current, we identified as the current centers. You see the larger regional center as part of your business district, and your community center in your downtown area. And then going out to 2050, you see additional centers in your Parmenter area, your Century and Allen, and in the Bishops Bay area as well. The regional development framework locates about 40% of all growth within centers and corridors. And so concentrating growth in this manner accomplishes several things related to our goals, the regional goals. One is reducing greenhouse gas emissions by bringing people closer to their desired destinations, which can reduce car travel and associated emissions. Centers connected by transit corridors can further reduce car travel. Also, decreasing the distance between destinations can increase access to jobs, resources, and personal needs. One of the goals, mixed housing types within centers and along corridors improves housing choice, reduces energy consumption because there's more smaller units which use less energy, and reduce people's transportation and utility costs. The second strategy is to prioritize growth in already developed areas. A common example, which you have likely seen in Middleton and around the region, is when outdated strip malls are replaced with taller buildings for housing and businesses. show this strategy visually, we can start with the areas already developed with urban uses today, the gray areas on this map. And we add the pink areas where high concentrations of new development occur in the 2050 growth scenario. This strategy helps conserve taxpayer funds by making better use of existing infrastructure like roads and pipes. Also, like developing centers and corridors, it reduces the pressure to develop in farming and natural areas and generates a lot of the same benefits that centers and corridors do. So zooming in on the Middleton area, you see the gray already developed area, and the darker gray is the 2050 growth scenarios. And Middleton is focusing a lot of its growth in already developed areas in your planning for the future. One just note about this map, it does look different than the regional maps because this comes from a online interactive map that we're in the process of developing, and I felt it was easier to zoom in on and show local areas, but it's still a work in progress. So the frameworks forecast 4 out of 10 new households and 1 out of 4 new jobs to occur in already developed areas. And as I mentioned, the city of Middleton has higher percentages than that projected in the 2050 growth scenario. Third strategy is planning for business growth. So as of course, as you're aware, as the population grows, we need more good jobs, wealth generating businesses to sustain the economy and provide suitable living for people. And suitable sites are needed to accommodate this business growth. Certain industries concentrated in our region offer higher wages and stronger career pathways, and also import dollars from outside the region. Examples include information and communications technology, healthcare, advanced manufacturing, biotechnology. Areas illustrated on this map to reflect those have high concentrations of office, industrial, and medical employment in the growth scenario. Here you see the map for zooming in for employment districts in Middleton, quite significant employment, as I'm sure you're well aware, existing and planned for Middleton going forward. The fourth strategy is to plan new residential areas according to the principles of traditional neighborhoods. You're familiar with these principles in general, but they include a mix of housing types, walkable streets, parks and civic spaces, and shopping and services. With careful planning, the areas illustrated on the map could achieve those results. So these types of neighborhoods provide a wider range of housing options, provide walking and biking, transit where feasible. They're more compact than conventional subdivisions, so they reduce pressure to grow outward. And they can help foster community through walkable streets, neighborhood parks that foster more face-to-face interaction. So these brownish hexagons are areas that we identified in 2050 growth scenarios that have potential for applying traditional neighborhood development in Middleton. So we used a computer model to estimate outcomes of the 2050 growth scenario, and the model estimates that if those 4 strategies I just covered so far are implemented, there will be a 9% total reduction in average household transportation and utility costs, and a 7% reduction in average household CO2 emissions or greenhouse gas emissions. So those first 4 strategies focus on where to grow, and the next 2, the remaining 2, highlight where to minimize growth and why. So the 5th strategy is to protect natural resources by avoiding protected natural areas and enhancing what the framework calls stewardship areas. This map shows resource protection areas in dark green, and the stewardship areas in light green, and concentrated areas of future development in pink. The resource protection areas include bodies of water, wetlands, floodplains, shoreland, buffer strips, steep wooded slopes, and parkland. In already urbanized areas, as you probably know, these are known as environmental corridors, and current regulations prohibit development in these areas. Natural resources, however, are also found in areas not legally protected from development, but that still provide important benefits. So we call these stewardship areas because preserving the benefits requires stewardship among landowners and communities. Some of the resources that they contain are potentially restorable wetlands that can reduce risk of flooding, increase climate resiliency, high quality woodlands, increase carbon capture, enhance quality of life, and the 500-year flood zone, or also known as 0.2% annual risk of flooding, but are becoming increasingly more frequent with climate change. So zooming in again in the Middleton area, you see the centers and corridors. I took the buffers off the centers, so before you were seeing the buffers that is around them that reflected the close by area that were people that could be served by those centers. But I took those off to view better on this map. You see the municipal and the municipal boundary, the centers and the corridors and the growth areas, and then the the resource protection areas in green. In this case, the stewardship areas on this map in blue. You also see the parcel zoomed in on the image of the parcel east of Parmenter, north of Springton, showing likely future environmental corridor in a smaller area in blue of a potential stewardship area. So this image comes from our online data portal where you can explore likely environmental corridors and stewardship areas. You can zoom in and click on the green and blue areas and identify, getting more information about each parcel. So you probably can't really read that little pop-out box, but it identifies that particular shape as a riparian steep slope and forested wetland. So it's a nice resource that I encourage you to explore. So the final strategy is minimizing development of long-term farmland preservation areas and coordinating development within the farmland transition areas at the local level. The farmland preservation areas shown very generally here are areas designated in town and county farmland preservation plans. They also may include agricultural enterprise areas and are typically characterized by large tracts of contiguous farmland and or high quality soils, and they're generally outside of what we think of as the agricultural transition areas identified for long-term expansion of urban areas. We didn't have in our new online map this layer fully loaded up, so I just zoomed in on the map you just saw to show the conceptual map. This is not meant to reflect hard boundaries. This is a conceptual map to communicate the concepts. Just want to emphasize that. So we've covered the strategies, and applying these 6 strategies will reduce the amount of farmland and open space converted to urban development. This graph shows that from 1990 through 2015, the region converted an average of just over 4,700 acres of farm and open land to urban development every 5 years. The rate of urban development declined significantly after 2005, and the 2050 growth scenario continues this trend and converts a 5-year average of 1,300 acres to urban development. So the growth scenario and the strategies just described show what we can accomplish together by applying these regional development strategies in a coordinated way. Local communities, private sector partners, and other regional entities are the ones that can make the framework happen. So local government officials, that's you, and residents can play a primary role in implementation, particularly through updates to your comprehensive plan. So when you're putting together plans and policies for future development, you can apply the strategies, consider the 2050 growth scenario. Other ways are by preparing more detailed area and neighborhood plans that reflect the strategies. A third way might be through changes to zoning code. Private sector is also key to implementing the framework because they're the ones that actually, for most part, build all these things, all the different aspects of the growth projected over the next 30 years. And if it's not viable in the marketplace, it won't be contributing to goals. So making this happen involves partnerships between communities and private sector partners to apply strategies that meet both goals and succeed in the market. CARPC can assist by helping communities with future development planning. It can provide input and guidance when you're updating your local comprehensive plan. We can help facilitate dialogue across communities about successes and challenges. We can provide advisory comments through the Urban Service Area Amendment process. And we will continue to track development data going forward and reporting on progress towards the goals. Just a couple of more slides to emphasize a key point, which is that this regional development strategy focuses on the physical development of the region. And we can make big strides towards shared goals through strategies that address the physical development, but that alone will not get us all the way to our shared goals. For example, the regional development framework recommends expanding the range of housing types and choices, but expanding the range of housing choices won't be enough to fully ensure safety and affordable housing for all. Other policies and investments will be needed. The Dane County Housing Initiative and the development of the regional housing strategy that's going to follow this framework and really kick off next year is a method to focus on those and encourage your participation in that. Similarly, the regional development framework identifies physical development patterns that can support more alternatives to driving and driving alone, and as a result will reduce average household VMT, vehicle miles, and greenhouse gas emissions from transportation. But reducing average household greenhouse gas emissions is not enough. We actually, to meet the county's climate action goals, we need to reduce total greenhouse gas emissions, total VMT. In fact, the county's action plan calls for a 15% total reduction in VMT. So additional transportation infrastructure and the policies will be needed to close that gap between what the physical environment provides and what transportation investments and policies can achieve. So that just a quick reminder that these are a couple questions if we have time at the end to think about. And with that, I will end my presentation, and so that Colleen can give hers. Thank you.
Well, excellent job, Steve. You can see from your presentation that how challenging would it be to reduce the greenhouse gases. Even up to 2050, you can 79% by some of these ways. So we got to all work together to make a difference. And it is good that you provided the context where you provide a lot of material for Middleton. That's very nice of you, very thoughtful, and it was great. Well, any questions for Steve? Folks, raise your hand. I think your presentation was awesome, but I do have Kurt Paulson and then Gretchen. Go ahead, please.
No, I was just going to say, we're going to hear from Colleen first, or do we want to discuss Steve's presentation or wait to do both?
Colleen, do you have a presentation as well, or you were joining Steve?
Yes, we have a presentation on the transportation aspects.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah. I think we'd prefer to hear that before we discuss. Yeah.
So Gretchen, you have any, could you wait until we have the second presentation? Okay, go ahead, Colleen.
Yes, I prefer to wait. That would probably answer my questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Colleen.
Let's see if I can get this shared now.
You see it.
All right,
Yeah,
great.
Yep.
All right, wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity to come and share with you our efforts on the regional transportation plan. As Abby said before, my name is Colleen Hosley, and I'm a transportation planner with the Greater Madison MPO. As a small personal aside, I have a background in geology, so I very much enjoyed that discussion on the retaining wall that we had earlier. So to get into a little bit of background about the MPO, for those of you that might not be familiar with us, as the designated Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO, we lead the collaborative regional transportation planning process with the adopted mission and vision you see here, to lead the collaborative planning and funding of a sustainable, equitable transportation system for the Greater Madison region. The map shows the official planning boundary for the MPO, but we obviously must account for travel into and out of the metro area and larger region. This graphic here shows our governance structure. So you can see the colored squares show the different seats at the table. So we have members that are appointed by the mayor of Madison. Madison Metro sits on our board. There's one representative from towns, WISDOT, Suburban Community, and Dane County. And currently Mark Opitz is our board chair. This graphic highlights the MPO's primary responsibilities. In addition to providing a forum for regional transportation decision-making and preparing the regional transportation plan, these include leading or supporting other special plans and studies, and approving federal funding for projects through the adoption of the Transportation Improvement Program. Finally, the MPO manages a program to promote sustainable transportation options. The MPO is strictly a planning and funding agency and does not design and construct projects or operate transit services. The Regional Transportation Plan is a framework plan that covers all modes of transportation. It sets guiding policy and identifies future projects, studies, and strategies to be implemented. Project recommendations are refined through corridor or mode or other topic-specific plans and design studies. This plan will build upon recent and ongoing MPO, WISDOT, and local plans and studies such as Madison Metro's Bus Rapid Transit Project and the Transit Network Design Study. The plan will be designed to support the Regional Development Framework, which Steve just presented on, and preferred growth scenario, which builds on the local plans. The Regional Development Framework and the Connect Greater Madison Regional Transportation Plan are integrated in two key ways. First, through shared and complementary goals, policies, and vision for the region. These shared goals and policies address the following common themes: accessibility, livability, economic prosperity, equity, sustainability, resilience, efficiency, and preservation. The second way is through the shared forecasts and preferred growth scenario. The growth scenario is guided by the agency's shared and complementary goals and will serve as the basis for the Connect Greater Madison Transportation Plan. This graphic shows the general plan development steps, public engagement opportunities, and schedule. We are currently finishing up phase 1 of the planning process, as you can see outlined with the bold black outline. Through the summer and into the fall, we will be developing and evaluating projects and strategies. We anticipate completing the draft plan early next year with adoption next spring. Recently completed public input activities include an online survey with some targeted focus group outreach. And there is currently an opportunity to comment on interactive maps along with some additional upcoming meetings that I'll mention at the end. So what's new since the last plan? As the MPO, we are required to update the regional transportation plan every 5 years. So what's new since the current plan was adopted not that long ago? A lot. A number of communities, including City of Madison, have completed updates to their comprehensive plans. We have new, much higher growth projections and a new draft countywide growth scenario developed as part of the Regional Development Framework Plan process. The MPO has a new improved travel forecast model built using data from a comprehensive household travel survey, which was the first one done since 2001. New major regional projects in the works include bus rapid transit and the Beltline flex lanes. Madison Metro is in the process of redesigning the bus network to better serve residents and complement the BRT service plan. And of course, there's the pandemic, which may have lasting impacts on travel, including introducing a new transportation mode, virtual transportation. The following are the current 7 plan goals in the existing transportation plan. We don't anticipate going back in and completely redoing these. There may be a few tweaks made. For example, we'll probably go in and more explicitly call out addressing climate change under the environment, but otherwise you see here the plan goals are create connected, livable communities, improve public health and safety, support personal prosperity in the economy, improve equity, reduce environmental impact, advance transportation system efficiency and reliability, and establish the financial viability of the system. As part of the current transportation plan, we do publish yearly a performance measures report that we track the goals and the measures that are established within the plan, as well as federally required transportation targets. One thing that we are in the process of doing, hopefully next year, this has all been kind of a static document where it gives more of the high level regional overview. Next year, we're hoping to launch this as more as an interactive online portal where communities can actually go in and see how they're doing compared to other communities. All right, the following are some additional information on growth scenarios. The transportation will be based on key transportation trends and some critical issues that need to be considered and addressed in the plan. Hopefully the bottom's not cut off there. All right, so here we see the map shows areas with expected growth in households and the number of anticipating new households for the larger communities in the metro area. The largest percentage increase is expected in the larger suburban cities and villages, which is consistent with past trends. Kane County is anticipated to add close to 100,000 new jobs by 2050. This map shows areas of anticipated job growth and the number of new jobs for larger communities in the metro area. Over 60% of jobs in the county are located within the city of Madison, resulting in an influx of commuters from other municipalities within the county. Around 1/3 to a half of workers in communities across the county work in Madison, with many more commuting to adjacent suburbs with large employment bases, including Middleton, Verona, Fitchburg, and Sun Prairie. The county is also a net importer of workers. There are an estimated 43,000 workers commuting into the county, a number that has been growing rapidly and is expected to continue to increase. An estimated 71% of resident county workers drive alone to work. That percentage is 10% less for the city of Madison workers due to higher percentages of transit, bicycle, and walk trips. Work trip mode shares haven't changed much over the past 20 years. When looking at all weekday trips, transit mode share is smaller and multi-occupant vehicle trips are much higher due to 2 or more persons from the same household making those trips. The pie chart on the left shows mode share for trips by central Madison area residents versus all county residents on the right. The percentage of their trips by transit, bicycling, and walking is much higher, particularly for walk trips. Though not shown, their trips are also significantly shorter on average. The graph on the left shows the trend in daily vehicle miles traveled, or VMT. There was a dip in VMT during the recession in 08 and 09. However, it has generally been increasing between 1 to 2% per year. So one thing that we will be taking into account are what we're calling drivers of change. While no one knows exactly how emerging technology and trends will play out and impact our travel, these are some of the key drivers of change we need to consider and begin planning for, including connected, driverless, and electric vehicles, other transportation infrastructure and communication technologies, shared mobility, including ride hailing or car sharing services and bike and scooter sharing, an increase in online shopping, and a potential long-term increase in teleworking as a result of the pandemic. For the RTP update, we will be using our travel forecast model to evaluate the impact on traffic volumes, transit ridership, and VMT, not only from anticipated growth and changes to the transportation network, including expanding roadways, new transit service, and new on and off street bike facilities, but other potentials of drivers of change, such as the connected and automated vehicles, widespread use of ride hailing services that allow multiple passengers, increased telework, and even pricing strategies. The county climate change plan includes an aggressive goal of reducing VMT by 15%, even with all the growth that is anticipated. Testing these things will help inform policymakers of the types of measures that would be needed to significantly impact VMT trends. One of the most critical issues we need to consider and directly and transparently address in our transportation planning is ensuring a more equitable system that overcomes historical racial disparities supported by past public and private policies and investments. This map shows our designated environmental justice or EJ areas with high and above average concentrations of minority and low income persons. Many of these EJ areas correspond to the historic red line maps, as well as to gaps in the current sidewalk and all ages and abilities bicycle facility map networks. A second critical issue is the ever increasing threat posed by climate change. Addressing it from a transportation standpoint includes two things: reducing transportation's impact on climate change and preparing and adapting the transportation system to withstand changing weather conditions, including more extreme weather events, including heat and rain. And just a little summary of some of our public engagement. We do have a website that I would encourage you to go check out. We have the website address down below, greatermadisonmpo.conveo.com, or you can just go to our regular MPO website and it'll address, or it'll take you there. There's also an opportunity for you to be able to see on there, if you click on the ribbons above, we have some background of some of the background plans that we've looked at. And we have this great map dashboard where you can go in and see several different maps, be able to pan around and see how that changes different networks. We took a new approach with this planning process by partnering with local organizations to host and facilitate focus groups with traditionally underrepresented communities to gather feedback that we would likely not otherwise receive from the public survey and public meetings. And again, on our website, you can go on and click and see some of the feedback that we received. We just completed a regional survey to gather broad public feedback on key transportation topics to understand top concerns, priorities, and opportunities. We have tabulated the results, which have just been posted on our website, along with a presentation summarizing the results. Just yesterday, we launched a new map commenting tool, also available on the website, to gather input on areas of opportunity and critical needs. Users can post comments on the network maps, identifying gaps and challenges, as well as what they love or what's working really well. That'll be open through October 3rd. We do have that posted on our Facebook page if you follow us as well. So we would definitely encourage you to share that with your network so we can get as much valuable feedback as possible. We are anticipating some of those map comments may be more granular than the purview of our regional transportation plan. And in those instances when there are comments that are specific to municipalities or other jurisdictions with the roadways, we will share that with each municipality as well. So just kind of a recap, we are finishing up this phase 1. We are anticipating probably in November, we will be having another round of online open houses that you can go on and listen. We do have a YouTube page where you can see some of the past presentations and listen to them, at which time we will be presenting some of the priority projects and other information that we've heard along the way. So again, thank you for the opportunity to present. And I think now if there's questions, Steve and I would be happy to answer.
Wow, amazing amount of information and really appreciate it. If somebody has any questions for either of the speakers, please raise your hand. Gretchen, do you have any question you had in the past? Okay, Kurt, go ahead, please.
Yes, I do. Sorry.
Go ahead, Gretchen.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay. Sure. So I still have one for Steve here. So I noticed that there was a quite notable decrease in the trajectory of farmland conversion to 2050. And I'm wondering how much of that relates to the Middleton Comprehensive Plan and how we're doing on that. I didn't find a map of the conversion trajectory if we don't do anything at all.
Yeah, thanks for that question.
Please let me know if that question is not very clear.
No, I understand it. You're wondering about whether, to what extent Middleton's future growth planning contributes to the decline in conversion of farm and open space to urban development. Was there a second part to the question? Okay.
Basically, how we're doing on that with the comprehensive plan, if that's been looked at.
Right. Okay. Well, the city of Middleton, in our 2050 scenario, growth scenario, has the highest percentage of household and job growth occurring in already developed areas, and in other words, infill and redevelopment of any other community in the region. So the city of Madison had like around 60% of their households, and you have over 72%. So Middleton is punching well above your weight, I suppose, if I use a strange metaphor maybe, but in contributing to that regional development, that strategy. And so I think, and it's not, the growth scenario is not a, it's not a wild pie in the sky allocation of growth. It pretty closely follows your plan. There might be some cases where when we got farther out towards the 2050, we may have erred on the side of more compact and more say mixed types of development, because that was consistent with our goal. But I think in two ways. One, Middleton contributed by influencing the goals and objectives that the regional development framework ended up choosing, by providing a lot of positive input to both the Greater Madison Vision and our goal process. And secondly, through your comprehensive planning.
Just to jump on a more local level, most of the the farmland preservation that the city has done over the years has been done through intergovernmental agreements, primarily with the town of Springfield, because most of the city's growth area into undeveloped lands is north of the city, and we have some of the highest quality farmland in the country north of the city. And so we have really limited the city's growth area through an intergovernmental agreement that we adopted with the town of Springfield that identified 3 different areas. One is a long-term preservation area. One is an area where the city can grow over the next 20 years. And now this agreement is, I think it was adopted in 2004. So it's, this has been 17 years since we approved the agreement. But even that initial growth area, the only lands within that have developed is the Misty Valley neighborhood. There is still farmland in that area that, should it become on the market and available for sale, the city may decide that, we would want to grow into that area. And that would be authorized under the agreement that we have with the town of Springfield. And then, so I mentioned there's the long-term preservation area and there's the growth area. There's another area north of the city's growth area where, once that first growth area is nearly full, then we could move on to that area north of there. But really what we've, over time, what the Plan Commission has tried to focus on, and the Common Council, is really focusing on infill development, especially along key transportation corridors in the city, to set us up for success with transportation, to locate jobs close to housing and vice versa, and really to try to preserve that farmland north of the city as much as we can.
Thank you, Abby. So, Kurt, do you have any questions, or do you think that there's so much there to absorb and great information?
Yeah,
So,
I don't want to keep us too long, so I can just
Okay.
talk to Steve offline.
Okay, let's say thank you to Steve and Colleen.
And Colleen.
And, there's a tons of information. Thank you. And we move on to item number 6.
Thank you. Look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thanks to you both. So there was no action needed on that item, just an informational
Yep.
presentation.
So Abby, you want to go over the budget?
Sure. Yep.
Okay, go
So
ahead.
I've included in your packet the city's operating budget and capital budget for our department. We have submitted these to our finance department, and we've had an initial meeting with our finance department staff, Mayor Brar, and our city administrator to go over these. I don't think that there are any changes at this time to any of the items that we have requested in the budget. So I guess just quickly to go through these items, we have the Stonehorse Green, and we're estimating that cost at 1.6 million, but we are continuing to do fundraising, and because we know that the bidding environment is not great right now, and there's some high costs for lumber and steel right now. So we have raised over 600,000, which was our fundraising goal, but we're continuing with our Friends of the Stonehorse Green Committee to do fundraising for that project. And we're hoping to put it out for bid in November of this year, so it can be constructed in early spring next year. The second project on the list is North Mendota Trail Connector. This is the trail that eventually will connect Branch Street all the way east to the city limits on the north side of Century Avenue. It's a 10-foot wide regional path that, once connected to the edge of the city limits, will actually connect through the town of Westport all the way north of the lake and over to the north side of Madison. So this is a major regional trail. The city has done what we can using tax increment financing to fund the project. We spent about 1.4 million And the remainder of the project is not eligible. It's outside the TIF district. And so the cost estimate for that is 1.5 million. And we are going to be requesting support from Dane County for this. So the amount that is shown right now is the full amount, because we don't know yet whether the county will decide to include a line item in their budget for our project. The third item is the B-Cycle e-bikes. This is the bike rental where you go and swipe a credit card and you can check out a bike. We have been talking with B-Cycle for years about coming to Middleton. We actually started working with them before they kind of kicked off their program in Madison. And what they have presented to the city now is a much more favorable option because it does not require an annual operating cost. So with the new e-bikes, that has really changed the financial model for B-Cycle, and they're able to accept a little bit more financial risk. So they only need the city to contribute for the upfront capital costs associated with the project. And that would be about 160,000. That would get us 8 different docking stations focusing around the downtown area, the major parks, and the hotels. Because these e-bikes can get you quite a bit further than just a regular B-Cycle bike rental would. And we're proposing a split, half TIF funding and half tourism funding. And the Tourism Commission has given a preliminary endorsement. The next project is the Pheasant Branch Conservancy Trailhead. This is right across the street from the Common Ground site, which is what has been used temporarily as parking for the Conservancy. Unfortunately, that's not land that the city controls, and it is being redeveloped soon. We have put signs out now to let people know that that site's no longer going to be available and to temporarily direct them to other parking opportunities. But we would like to get the Trailhead project moving forward on a little bit faster timetable than we had previously outlined. Another driving factor of that is that we just learned that we received a $200,000 RTP, which is a Recreational Trails Program grant from the DNR. And that has a 2-year window of time. So we have 2 years to spend the money, or to spend the money, meaning to complete the project, but also to spend the funds that we are using as our match for that program. And the matching funds that we're using are the funds for the Century Avenue Bridge project, which just happens to align really well with the timetable. And that's where we're going to be working with the county to reconstruct the Century Avenue Bridge and to get the trail beneath the bridge. That trail will align with the Trailhead site. And we will also need to have a new ped bridge installed over Pheasant Branch Creek that would connect the Trailhead site east to the main path into the Conservancy. So the costs that we're showing in 2022 are just design costs. 2023 is phase 1, which is the pedestrian bridge, the parking lot, the utilities to serve a future shelter and sustainable features. And of that 389, 200,000 is being funded by a grant. The second phase could then begin in 2024, and that would be designed for the shelter building. And then the shelter could be constructed in 2025 if the city decides to proceed with phase 2. The next project is a project that has been underway for a while by the Public Arts Committee. This is a utility box wrap project where we would work with local and regional artists to design images which could be applied to utility boxes in high visibility areas. So we're proposing capital budget for this. We also have discussed that this could potentially be a TIF budget item if all of the utility boxes were located within a TIF district. The next item is just a future year. It's a placeholder for purchase of the 100 kilowatt solar array that we have on top of the police station. That array right now is owned by Madison Gas and Electric. And we are getting all of the power that is generated by the array. But in 7 years from the initial agreement, the city will have the opportunity to purchase the array at the market value at the time of the purchase. And so we don't know what the market value is. It's probably less than 100,000. The initial installation cost was 300,000 and the panels are expected to last 25 years, but solar panel costs have come down so dramatically that we think it's probably going to be less than 100,000. And we would need to go get it appraised next year if we decide we want to move forward with purchasing it. The Cayuga connector would be a new path that would connect the newly improved at-grade crossing at Cayuga Court and University Avenue. We would need to work with the DOT on this, and we don't yet have authorization from the DOT to proceed with the project. It would need to use some DOT right-of-way just east of the Beltline, but then it could connect up to the Parmenter Street roundabout, and this was identified in our PED bike plan. The next one is new streetscaping along Lisa Lane. We have made some minor road improvements as part of the Middleton Market project, but we have missing sidewalk gaps, a lack of street lighting that would be more PED oriented. And then also we would like to plant street trees on that street and also fill in the missing sidewalk gaps along the east side of Laura Lane. So that's what's included in the 450,000 cost. Again, it's a TIF project. The next one would be utility undergrounding along Century Avenue. We're showing that in 2024 as a TIF 5 project. And then the last item is the Meritor infrastructure. And this is a developer finance TIF agreement that the city entered into when Meritor acquired land and consolidated 13 acres of land, including some land that the city sold to them for a future medical campus. So we've shown that in 2025. At this time, it's unknown when Meritor will proceed.
So before we move on to the next item, any questions to Abby about the capital improvement plan?
Yeah,
Kurt?
Abby, I'm sorry to be a stinker about this because we had this conversation like 4 or 5 years ago, but I still don't understand why we have to pay E-Cycle. It's a for-profit company that charges people to use their bikes. Why aren't they paying us? Or maybe we'll just let them, they have to set up docking stations, right? So they're not paying us a lease fee to use city property. I just don't understand this. I know we had that conversation long ago, but
yeah, it's
it
for
still doesn't make
purchase of-
sense to me.
It's for purchase of the bicycles.
So we would own the bikes?
We would, yes, we would own the bikes, but we would enter into an agreement with E-Cycle for a minimum of 3 years to operate the system. So having sat through quite a few of those meetings, and Daphne can jump in as well, they have some pretty substantial costs associated with maintaining the system, swapping batteries, moving bicycles around when all of them end up at one docking station, maintaining the bicycles, fixing flats and other things as they arise, relocating the bicycles when people don't dock them at the correct locations. And they still don't, operate at a profit. I mean, they are privately owned. They're part of Trek.
Yeah.
But they still are not a real profitable entity. And our staff views this as a wonderful opportunity to supplement our transportation system. Granted, this is not year round. These bikes will go away for 3 months out of the year, but their figures that they have presented to us show that people are using these for transportation, especially for the last mile. So, it may not be feasible to do a bus transfer because of the amount of time associated with it, but you could hop on an e-bike to get to your destination, or if you have a few small errands around town. The other thing is that, in my opinion, there's a big difference between what they were proposing previously and the e-bike system, because I always thought, well, why wouldn't somebody in Middleton just buy a bike for $100 at Walmart if they were going to pay these fees? The e-bikes are very, very expensive. So it's a pretty substantial investment. And I think there are quite a few folks. Mark Opitz, who's on our staff, has an annual subscription to B-Cycle, and he uses them when he travels. So instead of getting on a bus, especially during a pandemic, when people don't feel comfortable being in an enclosed space, this is a really nice, safe outdoor opportunity for transportation and also recreation. We want to keep the hotel guests who are staying here in Middleton if we can. We would love to have them hop on a B-Cycle bike and come downtown. We have the trolley that also provides an option, but that's not on-demand service. Yeah. So a lot of people don't want to check a schedule and but it's so easy to just hop on one of these, swipe a card, and people of all abilities can ride them because they have the assist, the pedal assist.
So if I understand it, we buy the bikes and then you're basically hiring B-Cycle to run their system. So they do operations and maintenance, and they're taking all of the rental fees to cover their costs. And then at the end of 3 years, we own a bunch of used e-bikes.
Yes.
What do we do at the end of 3 years?
Well, ideally, we would continue to operate the system. I mean, I think it's only grown and expanded in Madison and other communities. So ideally, we would continue to operate the system. We would have to, at the end of 3 years, negotiate with B-Cycle on whether or not they have found there to be enough subscribers to the Middleton system to continue to operate at no cost to the city.
So right now, the best thing is that there will be no operational cost to the city. I know, Kurt, I do understand your point. So it is, I wish there was an easy solution. Elder Ramsey?
And this is to piggyback on what Kurt was saying, and what one of the things we asked at Bike and Ped is this 3-year time frame that we're looking at, because they're selling it to us as, you're not going to have any maintenance costs, any operational costs for 3 years. But our question at Bike and Ped, what happens after those 3 years? What are our projected costs? Like Kurt said, at this point we have 3-year-old bikes. So I think that there's still, even at this point, there's a lot of questions that really haven't been answered on this that I'd like to see answered, or at least see some projections, what happens after that 3-year period of time.
Yeah, that's a great point. Where do we go after 3 years? Okay, so Gretchen and then Randy Bruce. Gretchen, please, okay.
This is the, sorry. This is the only item I also have questions about. I'm wondering what the replacement life cycle is of these bicycles if we own them, because they are rather expensive, and having to replace them after 3 years could be quite a cost. And I wonder if there's a study that we could just look at how successful it's been in Madison, but also if the major financial benefit is for the final destination, and most of our traffic flow is the opposite way, that people in Middleton are commuting to Madison and they need the final mile there. How much will these bikes be used? Are they allowed in the Conservancy? Do we want e-bikes in the Conservancy? It just raises a lot of questions. And of course, I'm new to the committee, so I haven't seen past work on the subject, but I do travel a lot. And this spring we went to St. Louis, just as an example, for spring break. And we actually had wanted to rent B-cycles there to get around, and chose not to because of all of the negative comments on the app. So you have to download an app, then you have to rent the bikes, and then they're not charged, and then there's a flat. So what accountability is there for the B-cycle? I mean, it's fine if they want to just put them in and front the cost, it's their business. But if the city is responsible for this, how does that reflect on our city? If this thing isn't working, that's one question. Like, for example, when I was in also San Antonio, they have a scooter share like this, like an e-scooter, and people want them to be eliminated because there's such a problem there. So I'm just curious how much background study has been done on this, and particularly how it's worked in Madison, since that's our local community.
Thank you, Gretchen. So Abby, do you want to answer, or maybe let's, Randy Bruce, go ahead, please.
Sure. I just wanted to say that I think anything that we can do to encourage other modes of transportation other than car travel, I think is worthwhile. If we have to, there may be a cost to the city, but if we're serious about reducing our carbon footprint and greenhouse gases, I think this is maybe an investment we need to make. I also think it's an excellent way to support tourism in the area. I know that when we travel, my wife and I often will look at trying to find one of these bike operations to get around around town. So I would be supportive. I do see that there are lots of questions, and I hope that the committees that are going to be studying this will look at them seriously, but I'm in support.
Thank you, Randy. So Greg can just answer one quick answer to whether they could be used in Conservancy, and the answer is yes. So Abby, do you want to address any other issues, or?
Yeah, just a couple things. I will look and I'll get more information on what happens at the end of the 3 years and whether they can give us any commitment that would say that they're not going to start charging us an exorbitant operating cost. And I'll also learn more about the replacement cost of the bicycles and the longevity. It's possible that those questions have been discussed and answered at the Ped Bike Transit Committee, but I don't have those answers off the top of my head. A couple of other points. Somebody mentioned the number of employees we have in the city that are coming into the city and leaving the city. And I just wanted to mention that our population swells during the day, during the workday. That maybe has changed with the pandemic and so many people working from home, but Middleton is a net exporter of jobs to the region by about 10,000. So we import about 10,000 employees to the city. And many,
that's at least 10,000. Yes.
At least. It's probably gone up, but I don't know if we have more recent figures. Many businesses in the community, many major employers have located here primarily due to the amount of trails that we have in our community. We have over 27 miles of trails in a city that's only about 9 or 10 square miles. So, we've had major employers like Fiskars tell us that the reason that they located here is because their employees like to use the trail system for recreation, like during the lunch hour. So I think this would be a huge benefit to them. We have purposefully not included docking stations in Orchid Heights Park or any of the other park areas and public lands that are proximate to the unpaved portion of the Conservancy. So the main Pheasant Branch loop, the 3-mile loop north of Century Avenue, we really don't want to encourage people racing through the Conservancy on an electronic bike. They can, I think by ordinance they are allowed. Mark Opitz would correct me if I'm wrong here, but we really don't want to encourage that. In terms of what Madison's experience has been, we have only heard this from our representatives with B-Cycle. We haven't spoken with Madison directly, so we can absolutely reach out to our staff counterparts in Madison to learn about their experience. But I will say that Madison has continued year after year to expand their system, to add more bikes and to add more locations. And so I would think that would, that leads me to believe that they have had success with working with B-Cycle, but we can reach out to their staff there and get more information about that.
Excellent. So how do we want, Randy, you have any quick question, or you have raised hand? Oh, okay. So how do you want to approve it? Do we want to do it without that one item, or we want to? Mm-hmm.
I think our concerns are noted. As a general rule, we just recommend approval of the staff recommendation of the plan, and the finance committee can strip things out, but I don't think we've in the past strip out individual items. This is more of information support. I mean, I think we support bike sharing. I'm not sure B-Cycle as the only embodiment of that is where, yeah, I mean, if you go online, you'll realize this company has some
issues.
Concerns, yeah.
Yes, yes. Okay, need a motion to approve?
So move to recommend approval to council, at the finance committee and to council.
The capital improvement plan
Yeah,
budget.
capital
Okay, need a second?
Bruce seconds.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve the capital improvement plan budget, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion passes. All right, Abby, next one.
Next one is really straightforward. It's our department's operating budget, which is primarily in personnel. We had a couple of decision items included in this budget where we were asking for an increase, but I'm going to ask you to just ignore the two that are in the health and dental insurance line because the finance department indicated that those don't have to be requested as decision items, that those are taken care of through the whole city personnel budgeting. So the only decision item that we are requesting is $4,000 increase in the line item for outside services. And we would like to use that funding to purchase an energy management system that would provide not only better information for us internally about our energy use in our municipal buildings and streetlights and parks, but it would also provide a dashboard for the public to better understand the city's energy use. And this will help us because the city approved a resolution to move toward 100% renewable energy citywide eventually in 2050. And then we have more specific targets along the way. And we have a goal to be at, let's see, 100% renewable electricity for city operations by 2035. And we're already over halfway there with the solar projects that we already have on our municipal buildings and the agreements that we have with Madison Gas and Electric. But we want to continue to actively pursue this goal, and we can use this reporting system to tell our story to the public and add transparency. The only other thing that I would mention is that the city is part of the Sustainable Leadership Collaborative, which is an initiative of the county executive and the mayor of Madison. They've pulled a group of leaders of different municipalities across the area, and we're part of that. And we've learned from many other cities that they're using this system and that it's working really well for them. And so our sustainability coordinator, Kelly Hilliard, is recommending that we implement something similar here. Mayor, you are muted.
It's a one-time cost for the software. So anyway, any questions for Abby for any, well, that's the only one item. So the rest of the salary. So, okay, do you have anything else, Abby?
No.
So you need a motion for this to approve or not?
Yes.
Okay, need a motion to approve the operating budget.
So moved.
Okay, need a second?
Slavish will second.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion to approve the operating budget of the planning department, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. Anything else, Abby?
That is it.
Okay, need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Need a second? Wow.
Second. I guess.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to adjourn, say aye.
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 Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a great evening.
I know.
Bye-bye.
Bye.